Prisma is a modern ORM object relational mapper that makes working with databases in JavaScript and TypeScript simple and safe. Instead of writing manual SQL, you'll define your database models in a schema.prisma file. Prisma will then automatically generate a Prisma client, giving you autocomplete and type safety whenever you query or mutate data in your database. It's almost like having a smart, productive layer between your code and your database, preventing common mistakes and speeding up your development process. So to get started, let's navigate over to the Prisma documentation, select the Nextjs field, and follow the steps as indicated. So what we have to start out is the latest version of a Next.js application. We're using the default settings to establish the project, but you're more than welcome to customize those as you're based on your project's needs. Inside of the Prisma documentation under the Next.js startup, we're going to follow the documentation in order to add Prisma to the project. So we'll begin by installing the first recommended command, npm install Prisma tsx. Then we'll install the next command, the Prisma extension accelerate, the Prisma client, and .env. Once it's installed, we're going to initialize Prisma by adding the npx Prisma init command as suggested in the documentation. You'll need to answer a few questions while setting up the Prisma Postgres database. Select the region that's closest to your location. Add a memorable name for the database, like whatever you're going to call your application. But once this command is complete, we should have a Prisma directory with a schema.prisma file, a prisma.config.ts file to configure Prisma, a Prisma Postgres database setup, which will connect it to our own database in just a moment, .env file containing the database URL at the project's root, and a output directory for the generated Prisma client, which will be generated /Prisma. While we're waiting on this to finish install, I'm going to go ahead and set up my database. And for this project, I'm going to use a Postgres Neon database via vercel. It's free, it's fast, it's lightweight, but feel free to use any Postgres database that fits your project needs. This is just the one that I chose to go with, but it really doesn't matter. The process is going to be pretty much the exact same. So if you are using vercel, once you're logged in, you should be able to take care of this with a free account. We're just going to click on storage and create a database. And as I mentioned, we'll be using the Neon serverless database. You'll need to select the region that's closest to your location. You'll then be asked to name the database. And once it is finished setting up and everything is complete, the main thing you'll need to do is copy the database environment variables and paste those back into the Next.js application. Once your environment variables are pasted inside of the project, we'll head back to the Prisma docs, and it is asking that we define our schema. For right now, all we're looking to do is just establish the connection to the database and make sure that it works. We're just going to copy the post model as recommended from the documentation, and we'll remove the author ID and publish fields from the model. So all that we have are the ID, which will be the unique identifier, the title, and content as optional. You need to import .env/config inside of the prisma.config.ts file, just as suggested from the documentation. After updating the prisma.config.ts file, we'll then need to migrate our changes to the database in a table. So we'll run the npx prisma migrate dev command, and we'll be naming this migration init as the initial migration. Now that our database is now in sync, let's go ahead and add in the Prisma client, which will allow us to interact and make changes throughout the application and have access to Prisma. This will also check to make sure that we're running it efficiently so that if there's already a connection to the database established, it's not going to look to recreate one. And per the documentation, it suggests that we add this function inside of a folder named lib and add the function itself inside of a file named prisma.ts. All we need to do is paste in the code as suggested, and you may be receiving an error from the Prisma client import, and we're just going to remove the suggested from field and replace it with app/generated/Prisma and /client to make sure that it directly points at the Prisma client itself. that should care for the error message. And just to confirm that these changes did take place, we'll go back into the terminal and we're going to launch the Prisma Studio using the command npx Prisma Studio. This is a lightweight database interface provided by Prisma. So we don't have to necessarily worry about looking at the database inside of the Postgres vercel Neon storage. We have a better interface that we can use to view the data or the tables that are stored for our model. And as we can see, everything flowed successfully. We have a model named Post with a field name ID, title, and content. Now let's just confirm that the actual connection is established by creating a note that will be stored within a database, and we're going to display it on screen. I'm going to remove the code that was currently within the page.tsx and replace it with code that will, number one, import Prisma from the lib directory. We're going to revalidate the path so that we can immediately get a response back once the new data is validated and stored on the server. We'll be using force dynamic to make sure that we don't get into any issues with caching from Next.js. Because we are using the latest version of Next.js, we can add server actions directly inside of the page.tsx file. I just have a function named add post that'll take in form data. We're using the use server directive to let the project know that this is a server function. We're going to capture the title from the form data using .get and make sure it's being stored as a string. If for some reason we send over blank information, we're not going to be able to add it to the database. And then we're using the Prisma.create, which is part of the Prisma client that allows us to directly gain access to our model and use .create in order to create a new post. And I'm using revalidate path here as previously mentioned so that we can immediately revalidate the data. And if there's new content available from the server, we'll immediately see it. And then inside of the asynchronous function named home, the main thing I want to call out is that we will have a function, excuse me, a const named post, and we're going to find all of the posts within the database and display them on the screen using the post.map, which is just some simple JavaScript. So let's go ahead and run our application on our local server by typing the command npm run dev. And this is going to launch everything on localhost 3000. And in our browser, we should be seeing that we have an input field with the add button and a message indicating that there are no posts yet. So just to test out our connection to make sure that it's working properly, I'm going to type in the name of a post named Hello World. We'll click add. And we immediately see Hello World populate on screen because we're using to revalidate the data from the server. And it appears that everything is working properly because we are able to add a post and display it from the database. But the true test is just going to confirm that we do have access to it by viewing what we have within the database itself. So I'm going to go back to localhost 555 with our Prisma Studio. And if we refresh the page, we'll now see that we have a post within the database with the ID of 1, the title of Hello World, and content is null because we didn't add any content as that's an optional field. So it appears that we have established the connection to Prisma as we desired. We have the ability to create and get data from our database. Feel free to add on to this as this is just a quick video to show you how to connect the latest version of Nextjs 15 project to a Prisma Postgres database. In the next video, we're going to add on to this by adding authentication using Better Off.